class we had discussed about the food chain. In today's video we shall discuss about there are different types of food chain in an ecosystem in the nature. That is, the first type of food chain is grazing food chain. Now what is grazing food chain? Grazing food chain starts with the producer and proceeds further in grassland ecosystem, and it starts from grasses and grasses to herbivores. That means the grasses are eaten by the herbivores and then it is consumed by the carnivores. We have taken the example here, that is the producers. Producers are nothing but grasses, and that grass is consumed by the primary consumer, example as goat, and this primary consumer is consumed or eaten by the secondary consumer, that is nothing but man. So the secondary consumer is depending on the primary consumer and primary consumer is depending on the producer. This is how the food chain is working, that is nothing but called as grazing food chain. The next example under grazing food chain we have chosen from the aquatic ecosystem, phytoplanktons. The phytoplanktons are nothing but the unicellular or the multicellular. Many of the aquatic photosynthetic plants or the photosynthetic producers are considered as the phytoplanktons, and these phytoplanktons are eaten by the zooplanktons. They are nothing but the microscopic animals or many of the aquatic animals like fishes, etc. And these zooplanktons are consumed or eaten by many of the small fishes which are present in the water medium, and these small fishes are consumed by the larger fishes, and the larger fishes are eaten by the predators. Like many of the snakes also can be considered, or crocodiles, etc. Like this, many of the carnivores which are eating the larger fishes can be considered as the predators. Like this, we can see the grazing food chain in the aquatic ecosystem. And the second type of food chain is the detritus food chain. What is detritus food chain? That means the detritus food chain starts from the dead organic matter. This is the most important word which is required in detritus food chain is nothing but the dead organic matter. And this is proceeded by further from detrivores to decomposers. What we want, we require the word that is dead organic matter. It may be waste of plants or waste of animals, or the fecal matter of animals, or the dead body of animals, or dead waste of plants. All these dead organic matter are proceeded further to form the detritus, that is nothing by the detrivores. We have discussed what are detrivores in the previous class. We shall recall it. Detrivores are the organisms which are depending on the organic matter, and that detrivores will partially decompose the organic matter, and that partially decomposed organic matter by the detrivores is converted into the humus by the help of decomposers. What are decomposers? Decomposers are nothing but the organisms or the microbes like bacteria and many of the fungi which are depending on the dead organic matter or dead organic substances for their nutrition. Such organisms are called as decomposers, and these decomposers are also called by another term as saprotrophs. So this is how the detritus food chain works. We shall see the example to make our concept easier. Detritus. We discussed detritus is nothing but the organic matter. Dead organic matter is consumed by the detrivores. So which are detrivores? Example, earthworm, beetle, termites, etc. Like this, many of the insects can be considered as the detrivores, and these detrivores are eaten by the decomposers. They are nothing but bacteria and fungi are the examples for decomposers. That means the decomposers are depending on the detrivores and detrivores are depending on the detritus. This is how the detritus food chain works. This can be considered as the example also. The natural interconnection of food chain is called as food web. We discussed about food chain in the previous slide. We took example as the grass. Grass is eaten by goat, and goat is eaten by the tiger, and this is eaten by the tertiary consumer. That means, let me take it as a vulture. Vulture can be considered as the tertiary consumer. I would like to repeat the food chain we have taken as an example here. Grass is eaten by goat, and goat is eaten by tiger, and tiger is eaten by the next level, trophic level organism. Now what is grass? Grass is the producer. Grass is the producer because it is not depending on any other organism of the trophic level or in the ecosystem for its nutritional. Instead, the plants are preparing their own food by the utilization of solar energy as well as many other photosynthetic factors like water, carbon dioxide, etc. Like this, by the utilization of many of the raw materials, the plants are producing, that is grass is producing its own food, and hence we can consider it as a producer. Next, the goat are considered as the primary consumer. Why the goat is considered as the primary consumer? Because the goat is directly depending on the producers, that is grass. Next, the tiger is considered as the secondary consumer. Why we are calling tiger as the secondary consumer? Because the tiger is not directly depending on grass, but it is indirectly depending on grass. And next comes the tertiary consumer. So this is how the one trophic level of organism is depending on the next trophic level of organism. This we called it as the food chain. This we call it as food chain. Now we are speaking about food web. We shall repeat the definition of food web. The natural interconnection of food chain in the food chain is called as food web. Before describing or before explaining the food web, we shall see the food chain. Any one of the trophic level of organism, if it is eroded or if it is extinct, the whole food chain will be destroyed. For example, if the goat is completely destroyed, or if the goat is extinct, means what happens? The tiger leads to death. That means the secondary consumer. Why it is undergoing death? Because the tiger does not get any of the food. But in the meantime, the growth of grass will be vast. More large amount of grass will be grown, and the tiger cannot eat grass. Instead, it leads to death. And also, the grass, it grows and it completely receives all the nutrition which is present in the soil. But in the end, ultimately, even the producers also will lead to death. So, what happens here is, if any one of the trophic level organism is disturbed, the whole food chain will be disturbed in the ecosystem. But how the nature is beautifully modified is, when we speak about the primary consumers, there is not only goat, but instead there are numerous herbivores. We can take goat, sheep, cow, buffaloes, etc. Like this, many of the herbivores are present. So what happens? If the goat is extinct, or if the goat is not present, the tiger can also eat sheep, the tiger can also eat cow, the tiger can also depend on buffalo, many other, whatever the remaining herbivores. That means if one primary consumer is deleted, or if any one primary consumer is extant, the food chain is not disturbed. Likewise, not only the grass, there are many of the producers, like many shrubs are there, many herbs are there, many of the trees are there. So, the goat can also eat herb, the goat can also eat shrub, and also the goat can also depend on the leaves of trees. Like this, if the grass is extinct, or if the grass is completely deleted, the food chain is not disturbed. The primary consumer can also depend on many other producers. Like this, what happens? There are many other organisms depending on different organisms present in the different level of different trophic levels of ecosystem, and that is what we are calling it as food web. Now we shall see the definition. The natural interconnection of food chain. The natural interconnection of food chain is called as food web. So the food web will balance the ecosystem instead of extinction of animals. This is how the food web works. Only 10% of the energy is transferred to each trophic level from the lower trophic level in grazing food chain, and is called 10% law. That means we spoke about the grazing food chain. We took example as grass, goat, and the next comes the lion or tiger, that is the secondary consumer. So in trophic level, from the lower trophic level is producers, next comes the primary consumer, next comes the secondary consumer, and in the end we can see the tertiary consumers. Only 10% of the energy is transferred to each trophic level, from one trophic level to next trophic level, only 10% of energy is transferred from the lower trophic level to the next trophic level in the which kind of food chain? In grazing food chain, and hence we are calling it as a 10% law. Each trophic level has certain mass of living organism or living organism, we can call it as the biomass at a particular time and is called as standing crop. Standing crop. So what is standing crop? Each trophic level has certain mass of living organism at a particular time and that is called as standing crop. In each trophic level there is a certain mass of living organism at a particular time or a particular period of time. We call it as standing crop. It is measured as mass of living organisms or number in a unit area. Mass of living organism in a unit area. This is how this standing crop is measured. And next, standing state. It is the amount of nutrients present in any given time, present in the soil at any given time is called as standing state. We shall repeat. The amount of nutrients such as carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, etc. present in the soil. The amount of nutrients present in the soil at a given time is called as standing state. Ecological pyramid. What is ecological pyramid? In the previous slides, we discussed about the trophic levels of organisms. Related to the trophic level of organism is the ecological pyramid. We shall see what is ecological pyramid. The ecological pyramids is the graphical representation of the nutritional relationship of an ecological parameter present in the various trophic levels with producers at the base and the carnivores at the top of the pyramid. This is what we are calling it as ecological pyramid. I would like to repeat in a very simple way. Ecological pyramid is nothing but the graphical representation. It's a graphical representation of the nutritional relationship of an ecological parameter in various trophic levels. Producers as the base and the carnivores or the tertiary consumers at the top of the pyramid. Always in the ecological pyramid, the producers will be placed in the basic level or in the base and the carnivores or the tertiary consumers will be placed in the top level. Charles Elton developed the idea of ecological pyramids and hence because of this, these pyramids are also called as Eltonian pyramids. Ecological pyramids are also called as Eltonian pyramids because that was first developed by the Charles Elton. And also we used the word graphical representation. How we are representing the ecological pyramids? The producers are at the base. Why we are keeping the producers at the basic level? Because the producers are present in the larger amount or quantity. That is, we will represent the trophic levels as T1. Always the producers are in the basic level, in the first trophic level. Next to the producers, there will be the primary primary consumers. Primary consumers. They are represented as T2. The primary consumers are less in number compared to the producers. Always the producers are in larger number compared to the producers. The primary consumers are less in their population. Next to the primary consumers, there will be the secondary consumers. Secondary consumers. They are represented or placed in the trophic level 3. That is T3 is represents the secondary consumers, and the next in the top level there will be the tertiary consumers, and tertiary consumers are placed in the 4th trophic level. They are in the top level. The tertiary consumers are less compared to the secondary consumers, and secondary consumers are less in number compared to the primary consumers, and primary consumers are less in their population or in their number compared to the producers, and they are placed in the trophic level 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is how the pyramid of various organisms are constructed, and this is what called as the ecological pyramid, and this same ecological pyramid is also called as Eltonian pyramid, and this is how the pyramid is described, and we shall discuss about the next types